is a committee meeting night. This is Monday, March 12th, and we have 4 standing committees on among the members of council, and I believe each of them is planning to have something at least to say. We will begin tonight with the Planning and Development Committee. Christine Fall is the chair.
Great, thank you, Mr. President. I just have a miscellaneous. My miscellaneous is we hope to bring the wellhead protection plan or changes next week to council for reading. I did talk to the law director. He's reviewed them, so now it's in the plant, the wellhead protection plan committee all for it. So I'm hoping to see those on Monday, all the changes. Okay. Looking forward to bringing it forward. And also, I was going to bring a discussion about a annexation process that has been going on for quite a while. But the letter that I received stated that it had tables and such with it. This is the Columbia Gas section down by the other end of East State Street. The tables weren't with the communication I got, and there are some other information that I would like before I present it to committee yet again. So that's
Did you receive those?
I received a letter. It said that there were tables. I had no tables. You have the tables now?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing is that how is their annexation request? Because it's been such a long, drawn-out process that we need to see where that request is at the planning, Paul Logue's office, and see what exactly needs to be done before it comes to us.
I don't know where it is, actually. I thought first we have to say what services we'll provide, and then it goes to county. I don't know if we did that already. I forget.
Well, that's what, it's been such a long process, and it's gone back and forth, and now they have a little bit different deal worked out with Canaanville, so the Canaan Township trustees. So
The county had previously released it,
okay.
but we didn't accept it, so
So
it was kind
do
of
they
in
need to
limbo
release it
there.
again,
That's
or-
a good question.
Okay.
And, Paul Logue will be out of the office the next couple of days, but as soon as he gets back, he'll start.
So maybe next committee meeting, maybe we can have a presentation on it and have Mike Newell or somebody from his office here. So that's my miscellaneous.
Okay, any questions or concerns? Mayor, did you start to say something?
No. I was aware we're going to cover fracking, but that was not on the agenda.
Right. It was requested to be taken off because the law director hadn't looked over things.
And that's the wellhead protection portion, and you said something about the faculty senate doing something, right?
That's faculty senate, so.
Yeah. So everybody go there.
Yeah, go to faculty senate.
You have to be faculty to go to faculty.
Helps.
You might want to say where it's at if they're going.
I have no idea where it is. It's on that faculty. Tell us, Steve.
It's in Margaret Walter Hall, room 145.
Okay.
Is it open to the public?
No.
It is not. It's open to all faculty. I'm not sure about whether or not this is open to the public or not. I should know that.
Maybe the press can tell us.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to the Finance and Personnel Committee. Chris Nisley is the chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 8 items to go through tonight. I don't think any of them will be extremely lengthy, but some of them very important for us. The first thing I'd like to do is make a general announcement to let the public know that City Council members who are serving on the Finance Committee, that would be Councilmember Butler, Councilmember Patterson, and myself, periodically meet at a regularly scheduled meeting that is held by the City Auditor and the Mayor. And these meetings are usually held on Wednesdays at 2:30. So just to let the general public know.
First floor.
First floor of the City building.
And I'll just jump in. As we had in last year's sessions, we had urged the city, anybody outside that group who wanted to come, it is a public meeting, certainly, but it doesn't occur every Wednesday. So don't just show up. Please call the mayor's office and make sure that the meeting is going ahead on a Wednesday.
Thank you. I have several items that will be appropriation ordinances for next week. One of them will be a transfer, and this is in the CDBG Grant Fund 248. And what we'll be doing is transferring some funds in the amount of $19,400. And this will come from the supplies line to the administrative line to cover administrative portions of that grant. Another item for ordinances next week is that we will be amending the Safe Routes to School ordinance that was read last week. And that was approved for the appropriation of the full grant amount. And the amendment that we will be bringing forward will authorize $23,000 for the engineering portion of the grant, which is ready to begin. And then we will be beginning an ordinance also for a city grant application for our Community Development Block Grant Program, and Councilmember Patterson will be speaking to that tonight.
Yeah, what this will be, again, is authorizing the mayor to submit an application and enter into an agreement for a department, Ohio Department of Development. This is essentially a HUD-funded program in which we would be able to apply under a formula that entails small cities application, where we look at things such as community needs, extent of poverty, population, housing overcrowding, population growth lag, all go into the formula. Some of the things that, projects that have been funded in the past under this are things such as the Upper Fort, Fairview Stairs, fell under CBGD, Grant G. The Grosvenor Street slit repairs, Mill Street repairs, Court Street lights, a portion of those fell under this as well.
And just to add some more information, the Sunday Messenger, of course, has the first two public hearings that are required for the application's formula money. According to this, the city is eligible at approximately $97,000, so it's always fluxes because they have a formula, they put that together. First public hearing meeting will be here, 7 o'clock, March 26th. And again, we have two of them because we're trying to narrow down what our scope of, we take requests, we listen to the various projects and what is possible. Again, it's not a lot of money, but there are needs, and we've done mostly capital improvements with this whenever possible. A portion of it goes to housing, fair housing administration, awareness. That's part of the lecture that you had, a month ago, I believe, from HAPCAP, who we contract that out. Some of it goes for administration. So again, we had 2 years running for Mill Street, when we were doing Mill Street, mostly because we were trying for some stabilization money at that time, and we had ponied that up to do our match at that point. And that particular grant fell through, but we said, well, we'll keep going with it since that's what we had scoped out at the time. Just so you know what's going on. And again, public hearing, so everybody knows about it now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item will be to bring up is a suggestion by Auditor Kathy Heck. Will be here to help us with any questions we might have, but she's been contacted by an agency called the Central Collections Agency, and this group checks federal databases for information regarding federal taxes, and they also contract out to municipalities to collect delinquent city income taxes. And there is no cost for the city other than this agency takes a percentage of between 3 and 5% of the amounts of revenue collected. And the group is currently working with the cities of Dayton and Cleveland here in Ohio. And as I understand, the city of Athens had previously used an agency in a contract service in this way, but then stopped using the firm, and we collected as much as was practical at that time.
It's just a little bit of a different situation, though, because income tax information is strictly confidential. And so we did contract out several years ago with a collection agency. However, they were limited in what they could do as far as collecting. You can't leave, phone messages on a phone that someone else might hear and things like that. And so that goes back about 10 years. That happened when I was on council. And we did that for a couple years, and it was still going when I first started as auditor, and then we let it go. We kind of felt like they had done, what they could. And so this group actually has access. They have been vetted by the IRS, and they have access to federal tax returns. And this is a way for us to scoop up people who aren't paying, who should be. We don't have mandatory filing in Athens. We've talked about it off and on over the years, and we might yet again. However, that would involve probably another full-time employee to process all the returns if we did mandatory filing. And the fact that we have so many students in town who are already paying their withholdings through wherever they work and things like that, I'm not sure it would be a big benefit, although we hear differently at tax seminars. But right now we'd like to try this. Now that we've seen it work, it comes very highly recommended by other areas. Late today, I sent out some information that was sent to me with sample ordinances or resolutions. We need permission to enter into a contract by council, so you can look over that information, ask me any questions that you want. Maybe you want to wait until afterwards. We're not in a big rush. However, they will do a data dump in August, so I would like to have this through by early summer so that we can prepare. We need to provide them with our city limits so they know what addresses they're looking at, to see if those people have filed with the feds and not us and things like that. And there are sample letters that can go out, and so what happens is they contact the individuals, and then the individual responds to them, and some of them might not actually owe us any taxes, and then it's done. And so, but then if they do, then they are allowed to provide us that information, and so that we can try to collect what they owe us.
And there's a fee attached, a commission for them doing that.
Right, as Member Nisley said, it's a 3 to 5% commission based on what is collected.
Yes.
So if we don't find anybody, we wouldn't get anything. It's usually around 3%, but it could be as much as 5%, which is all still very reasonable. And, it's all money we wouldn't have it otherwise. Because we, as you know, we're working very hard to find people, and working with the law director's office, and we Google people and call and try to find people as best we can. But there are a lot of occupations that people can operate out of their home, and we would never know that they are making that money. If they file with the federal government and live in the city or work in the city, then they owe us also. And so this is, part of our duty is to collect the taxes owed to us. And so we'd like to try it.
Any other questions?
I have a question. So really, it's the federal tax. That's how they're able to go in if they're paying federal tax.
They have access to the IRS information database, which was a big process for them to be vetted in that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about the income taxes, we're very careful in our office about what we talk about, who pays or doesn't pay. We can't say any of that, or how much they pay or anything. And it's the same with your federal income taxes. However, once it goes to court, number one, then it's public record. But also, when people file with us, they have to send us paperwork to show why they're paying what they're paying or not. So we actually get business people, we get copies of their federal forms anyway. So it's not like it's a lot of information that we don't already have, it's just people we don't already have. Because they can't just say, oh, I think I owe you this, and then we take it and say, okay. They have to provide us with their W-2s. And usually they send there, and they have to provide, like Schedule C's, Schedule E's, whatever their, withholdings, depreciations, all that kind of stuff. They have to provide us with
Do you have a percentage idea of how many people you think may be out there?
No, I really don't.
You really don't?
I really don't. It's really hard to say. But we're limited in what we can do. We don't have time to go out driving around the city looking for little storefronts that we've never seen before, or asking people who are working on someone's house, hey, are you registered with the city? We get our information from the code office. It's been very helpful. And occasionally people will just say, hey, are you getting, you got anything from Cunningham Coal or whatever, things like that. We can follow up on it, but we don't have the manpower to go around looking for people who might be doing business. And as I said, this is, those of you who remember the contractor registration that finally went through council just a couple years ago. Well, that started with Steve Pearson in the code office and me many years ago before it ever came forward. And one of his issues were home occupations. So many people work on their computer now. And, if they're working here and making money in Athens, they should be paying our taxes like the rest of us. So there's nothing, we have nothing to lose by providing them with our city limits and letting them go after them. And if they don't find anybody, we don't pay anything. And if they do, it's people we wouldn't find otherwise.
In general, it sounds like a pretty good idea. My question was the same, how much might this bring in for the city first, and then second, what percentage of those that they send letters to and have to go through a process of trying to clear their name if they don't actually owe the city anything? So what's their false rate in the other cities that they've done in
I don't know about that, but what they do is, and I sort of like this, they respond to CCA, not to us, to that original letter. And if you look at, well, I don't know if I sent you both emails, but in the letter, we can pick what we want, the information we want in the letter. We can have a box saying, I do not owe, or I don't live in the city limits anymore, my business closed or whatever. They can check something and just send it back, and, we're going to take their word for it, so that we would never know. We're not going to be hounding people who don't owe us taxes. And they would deal with CCA, and if it appears that, yes, they do business in Athens and have not filed a form with the city of Athens, then we would contact them. The initial letters are very friendly, just like the first ones we send out, we start out very friendly. And so, and anybody can call up and say, hey, I shut that business down, or I moved out of town, and we say, fine. It happens every year when we send out our tax forms. We get some back, or somebody calls and says, hey, I'm no longer there. And we say, okay. So it's, we're not going to try to grill people if they say they're not here anymore. Eventually maybe we'll catch up to them anyway, but yeah. I can try to find out more about that, but I have no idea because I just don't know the size. I don't know. I'd have to go in and look at some of the other cities that they've worked with. I know they've worked with those two big ones, but they've worked with some other smaller ones too, and to see how that works out. However, people representing this group are involved with the OML meetings, the tax meetings that I'm going to, and that's how we found out about it. So they're vetted within the government systems, and
So if this works out to be a workable arrangement between this organization and the city, then the mechanism, as I understand it, would be is that we would bring an ordinance forth authorizing the city to enter into an agreement to contract with them.
Yes, and I'd want to know some of the contract, like how long, because you've been feeding us some other information about what might be going on in Columbus and how that,
Right.
I mean, we may not be able to back out of a contract or, and if
Right.
somebody else is collecting the taxes and they're not collected locally, how, you're in an agreement with somebody. So, I don't know.
yeah, I haven't had
questions.
time to actually look at the contracts and yet either, but the fact is, if we're in the contract and either they're searching for us or they're not, and they know all this. Friday is when we had we had someone come and talk to us. We found out about it at another OML meeting. We had someone from CCA come and talk to Ray, me and Tina, who's our tax administrator. And then last Friday, Tina and I were in Columbus for another tax meeting facilitated by the OML, and the CCA representatives were there. And so we asked them again, hey, can you send us some more information? And so I just got it today. And so we can look at it more, but it's kind of like either they find it or not. And my feeling is whether they're doing it for us or for the state, they're still finding people who owe us Athens city income tax. So I'm not sure, but they are absolutely up on the centralization of income tax. We're not going to lose our income tax department if they do this, because they just can't possibly do everything that we do in Columbus. So collecting delinquencies, I suspect, would still fall on us. I suspect they'll do the easy stuff. Collect what comes in and keep their split, and then forward the money, and then all the tough stuff, then get thrown back on us.
Well, and if you get an opportunity to talk with that organization to find out the answers to the questions that the council member asked, you could forward that to us. That would be helpful. Any other questions?
Thanks.
Okay, the next item is the administration of the revolving loan fund, and this is a fund that the city has to help encourage small companies or projects within the city. It's previously been administered, and Mr. Seeley has spoken to us at city council meetings before, but his agency will no longer be administering that fund. And the mayor is suggesting that council consider authorizing the city to work with Buckeye Hills Development. And some of you may know of this through the grants that they manage for the Appalachian Regional Commission, and they have been in the region for quite a while and represent Southeast Ohio. The amount that we currently have available is approximately $200,000. The arrangement that, if it is deemed to be workable, the arrangement with Buckeye Hills would be similar to what the Athens County Commissioners are working with Buckeye Hills for them to develop or manage their revolving loan fund. So, any questions about this or concerns, or Mayor Weil, do you have some additional information?
What you're seeing is that they're working with, the county has a revolving loan fund, economic revolving loan fund, and we have one as well. Enterprise Development Corporation, Gary Seeley's organization, is no longer going to be administering ours. And the Economic Development Council, which is Todd Shelton, is going to take over the marketing of the counties. And he's kind of leery, he's new to the whole situation, so he's going to have Buckeye Hills, Hocking Valley Development District do the financial side of it. He'll do the marketing. I asked him if he wanted to take over ours as well, and he kind of backed off because he's not sure if he can handle the one. What I'd like to do is make sure this maintains itself and that we work with Buckeye Hills, Hocking Valley to do the administration of it. They're not local, but I've been asking around for about a year saying, is there somebody else who can do this? Most people are leery about trying to do a financial, loan process. What it will require is authorization to enter into contract with them. If you remember last month, we did you authorized me to actually enter into the contract with the Department of Development. So that's the state side of it now. Let's see. The other thing to think about is that we probably will want to put together a revolving loan fund committee in-house in the city just to make sure what is vetted by Buckeye Hills is what we want to do as well. So I want a second set of eyes. So I'll be asking some members of the Finance Committee or council members to be part of that. But as for the immediacy, the concept is authorization to start that rolling. And that's pretty much what I wanted to do, just let you guys know about and get approval. Any questions?
And I think what this potentially offers is for us to make use, as well as we can, of that $200,000 to bring additional projects and potentially business, employees into the community. So having us actively get the money out to other organizations who can utilize it for a loan, I think would be really helpful for Athens.
Yes, I plan to have a meeting with somebody from the Department of Development to give me the how-tos and a little bit more nuts and bolts of what needs to be done with this. I look at it as another tool for economic development. We have the Economic Development Council. They're involved of, really the marketing side of everything, what we do, attracting businesses. They work coordinate with the CIC, Community Improvement Corporations, as well as the Port Authority. Again, this is buy-in from the county, the city, and the university. So we're all on the same page. They're looking in terms of, actually, they're right now re-examining the need for industrial park, high-tech industrial park. They did a study in 2008, I believe, looking at the needs and and reviewing and updating that, saying what has changed since then, what can we actually look at and leverage. Again, this is for gap financing for somebody who's got money from the bank but needs a little bit more. The rule of thumb for the revolving loan fund in the past has been about for every 25,000 loans, you expect one job either added or retained in a business. But that's a rule of thumb. And again, that's a sliding scale depending on what it looks like. I've been trying to read up on this as much as possible and learn a little bit about it. And again, really, I look at it as another tool that would help the city businesses and jobs.
And so I'd encourage any council members who might be interested in, once this moves forward, serving on the board or this advisory group or committee that the mayor will be working with on it will help. Just other sets of eyes, and the more of us that know about it, the more we can communicate that to other people out in the community too. So, thank you. Last two items that I have, aside from miscellaneous, have to do with personnel. And I'll back up with a little bit of background information. This next item, personnel item, is about the police staffing. And you might remember that we had a second reading of an ordinance last week, and that was talking about the part-time and seasonal staffing levels authorized. And that was ordinance 40-12. And what that was, that particular ordinance was doing was having our temporary police, mainly those used for Palmer Fest and for Halloween, to be hired, that they were classified as call-in for special event purposes. And so that wasn't any funding amount that needed to be increased. But what we need to talk about now is the possibility of discussions, at least, to have these temporary police, the call-ins approved, to be hired as part-time employees. And this would be done mainly for liability issues, paying for workers' comp, that kind of thing. And so the administration is examining the possibility of this part-time employee status, and that's what I wanted to let council members be aware of right now, that the city administration is looking at that as a possibility. Councilmember Butler.
Thank you. And maybe if you have a second and the administration can add what we've done in the past, if you can offer those details and how this might be different.
In the past, we request and receive back from officers at outside agencies that come in for the fests and Halloween, and they fill out a 1099?
W-9.
W-9, excuse me, and are paid the flat rate. The concern here is the coverage under Bureau of Workmen's Compensation, and if they're not an employee. But it kind of adds a whole nother level to it, because you can't, in the past, they'd say they got $150 for one weekend, $175 for the other. Depending upon what they complete now as an actual employee and their deductions and what have you, it's going to be different. It might be 177 for one, 148 for another. So
Instead of filling out a W-9, they'll be filling out a W-4. So depending on how many deductions, as you all know, you put on there, that regulates how much we would withhold.
I'm a little concerned, because all of a sudden you're going to see in a police staffing under temporary or whatever, a number that skyrockets by 50. The only last component is that I was asking the Human Resources Director to check again with the Bureau of Workmen's Comp to say, is this indeed the only methodology that we can use? And we're right up to it, so if the answer is yes, we would indeed ask for suspension of the emergency clause and everything on Monday, because we have one of those events coming up here in 6 weeks, a little under, so.
Ready.
So the staffing has been there. This is something we've done, or the volunteer, or not volunteer, but rather the addition of the extra.
We've paid them as contract employees
Right.
rather than part-time or occasional or seasonal, however you want to look at it. Which means we can just pay them a flat amount and not pay any taxes or into, workers' comp, unemployment, or pension. If we want them, as Paula said, if we want them covered by workers' comp, then we would have to pay everything. We would have to treat them as an employee.
And they work less than the minimum, which is, you stated, Mayor, 12 days a year. It's
I
less
think
than
that's
the
what it is. Is that correct?
$600. So, I mean, they were already receiving, what do you receive if you fill out a 1090? You would get that form.
Right, but you don't have to report
It's up to them
that
to
income
declare
if
that.
it's under 600.
So,
Did something change that's forcing this?
somebody was injured,
Okay.
an outside officer working.
Last
Our Bureau of Workman's Comp has indeed covered that, but that's what raised it to the level, and I don't know if it was an audit finding or if this was just more an internal concern.
Well, no, we were just made aware of the injury because since that officer was working for us and not in his normal duties for the entity that he worked for, they didn't want to cover it, understandably. And so he called someone in the city to find out if he was covered by us. So,
But aren't they in fact more like private contractors, even though they are in law enforcement? I mean, wouldn't it be the
well,
same
that's
as
how we
if a
were
private-
treating him,
That's
but
how-
then, if someone gets hurt, yeah, we can say, no, we don't want to pay you that way, and then they can take us to court, I mean,
Well, whether they have any standing in court? I mean, it seems pretty clear to me, if you're a contractor, you assume the risk, you buy your own insurance, and whatever happens on the job happens.
I would like to state that if this was placed on the backs of these officers, we will not have the support that we need. I mean, it's the right thing to do is to cover their injury while they're here working for us in that situation.
I guess we could deputize all you for Common Fest.
You could.
Councilmember Gosney had a question.
So this is related to those other questions, I believe. Thank you. So what's the increased cost to the city for this? Above and beyond their $150, $175 per event, do we need to pay huge amounts to
I'm going to
workers'
say it's going to
comp?
be upwards
or
of $50 or so. The one, Palmer Fest,
per officer?
yeah. What we pay into police and fire pension for police and fire is much higher than what we pay into PERS for the rest of us. And Palmer Fest, we've been paying them $175. They start earlier in the day than they do for Halloween even. And so we have to add on to that the maximum amount that we think, so they don't go below the 175 is what, Chief Pyle has asked for, because that's what they've made in the past.
And so will we be indeed paying into their pension funds as well with this? And
If
are
we
there any
treat
other?
them as a part-time employee, yes, we have to pay all of those things that we're
So
required.
I guess before we're asked to pass this under suspension, I'd like to know what the cost to the city would actually be. I haven't heard any hard numbers here.
There's such an unknown, and I think that's what she's attempting to indicate. Again, I'd rather continue to treat them as contract employees and cover them if there is a related injury. But if we can't do that, then we don't know what the officer's going to put if he has 3 dependents or 0 dependents or...
Right, right. If our workers' comp will cover them, then, but I'd be surprised if they would continue to do that. I don't know. So that's the issue.
Could we potentially build in the city costs based on them declaring what would be the biggest expense for the city?
Well, that's how we figured it,
Zero?
with a zero deduction based on $10,000 a year or something like that. So, yeah, it was more than I thought it was going to be added on to that.
So we're saying $50 per employee.
Yeah, and the thing
per
is, we don't
person.
really know how many letters are sent out to these other entities asking for volunteers, is what it is.
Well, I can get that exact number. I mean,
How
we
many
shoot
you
to
got?
have probably at least
30,
50.
50, 30,
It's more like, let me think.
that's quite a few.
Yes, it's between 30, 50. If you
Say
take
50
30
times
plus
50.
20 mounted, that's how we reach that 50.
There you go.
I guess my point is, are there hidden costs here that we're not hearing about that we might not know about right now? And if we hire these as part-time employees, well, then we find out that it's going to cost us 2 or 3 times as much for the fest season.
I don't see that happening. We have to pay all their taxes, workers' comp, and pension. We
So
don't
there should be a
pay any
few.
medical or longevity or any of that other stuff. It's all your basic withholding.
And the workers' comp is based on the number of hours worked or something to that effect?
We have a
It's
rate.
based on the payroll and then the rate
Right.
that is assigned
So
by the
It's the
city.
same rate for
per-
Per
everybody.
dollar times
Yeah.
.045, whatever the rate, our rate
I
is for the
I have a
city.
little level of concern, even at this change, at what response we'll receive from the outside agencies, so. But again, we're up to it. It's time to call them in, so.
Councilmember Patterson?
That raises a question that I have that didn't come up earlier, and that is there a ceiling on the number of seasonal forces that come in? I've heard the number 30. Is that kind of the cap for how many are actually needed? Or if there were 50 letters that went out, and now with this new benefit, 50 all respond and say, we're all coming?
We do cap them, and we have people who want to volunteer beyond that, believe it or not, because the chief understands he has a budget, so we do indeed cap, like for Halloween, the first 30 patrol officers, and then people go on a waiting list. Everybody wants to work Halloween, so.
So if we're talking about potentially 50 employees times 50 per, we're talking about $2,500 to the city.
And I'll get those figures from the chief here this week in
That'd be for
email,
one event.
in terms
Per
of
event.
numbers.
Per event. Per event. But,
Okay,
yeah.
Times 4. Right,
But the other option is if you do end up with somebody with an injury, it could be more serious than what the past one that was had. The liability could be, much greater, I think. The $2,500 in terms of our entire payroll seems
Or even 10,000 for the year, because we're paying this anyway, and we have been for years. In the big picture of the police budget and the safety involved, to me, that's not a lot of money. But, no, we do not have a lot of money.
So when they're hired as part-times, there's not other hiring practices like training according to our city's rules and those kind of things, even
They
though
already get that.
they're coming
They
from
already
other
get that.
jurisdictions? You feel like they already get
They're
that?
police
Oh,
officers
that's-
already, so they're
I
all level
understand.
training. They're usually paired with somebody in our department as well, so
Okay.
they're not, lost in the city for Power Fest or Halloween.
Right.
We actually, we started paying him many years ago. Rick Abel started paying him because he wanted some selectivity. It used to be for all volunteers come, but there's some police forces that are more suited to a college crowd or not. And so therefore, that gives us some selectivity. And I'm paraphrasing exactly what Mayor Abel said many years ago when I was sitting where you guys were.
Right.
And there's actually a good portion that come as volunteers as well. I think last Palmer Fest, all the state highway patrol were volunteers.
They were all volunteer, their special response team.
Yes, and they came loaded for bear.
Correct.
And with their Darth Vader suits and whatever they were, those body armor things.
Robocops.
Robocop things. And it was the first time for them. So they were coming actually as a chance for them to exercise their crowd control abilities, to see how things unfold. So there's a certain component of actually a training opportunity for some of the smaller villages. I mean, we had Nelsonville Police there, we had Belpre Police. I think our police is a regular attendees as well.
So we could have that happen on homecoming weekend, crowd control.
How much more money do you want to spend?
Well,
Oktoberfest and Halloween are the main times that we contract. Do we do other fests?
No.
No.
Mill Fest.
Sure, but I might take this opportunity to echo Member Pappy's concern for safety. That's paramount in a situation like this. I want to make sure that we're providing a safe environment for all bodies, whether it's the...
we know that homecoming is becoming an issue.
I know that the university has convened a homecoming review team, and they're looking at a number of items, but I happily pass that along, so.
Two more comments here. Councilmember Powell?
What about with the mounted patrol? How, if a horse gets injured? I mean, are they covered by
We pay.
workers? Are they covered by workers' compensation? I mean,
We've
is
had
that,
paid
is that,
veterinarian bills in the past because of injuries to the horses, so.
because, I mean, it's almost more likely that a horse would have a problem with bottles being thrown.
It's actually possible that the horse was involved in this most, the one event that we're talking about.
So, but they are covered? I mean,
We
they're
have
not going to be
covered the
part-time?
costs.
Not by workers' comp.
No.
Okay. I mean, are they covered, like, in liability if they step on somebody?
What I can speak to is that horses have received injuries in the past, and we have paid for those medical
Okay.
bills associated with the animals injured.
But if they step on somebody and hurt somebody, if they're in the line of duty, are they, I mean, because they are deputized, aren't they?
They are, both of them, yes. the
So, I mean, are they
officer-
considered, if a horse, I mean, it's different if a policeman steps on your foot. It's a lot different if a horse does, you know, so.
Well, probably the policeman will say, get out of the way so I can step on your foot, otherwise I'll step on your fist.
Right.
The horse
Okay.
probably can't say that, so I assume the riders,
Snort at you.
Mr. Ed, I know.
Move out of his way.
Good question. Councilmember Patterson?
I too want to echo what Member Butler and Member Poppy were saying about the safety of the city. To me, you know, not regardless of, but it's good to know what the total dollar amount will be, but I think safety is huge and paramount, and you know, I'm sure from what I've seen at a lot of these fests, any horse coming, the horse's chest is going to hit somebody before its hoof does, so I think people have a tendency to get out of the way, but safety, safety, safety.
Well, thank you all for the comments. I appreciate them. And if you have any additional information to the questions we've raised, that would probably be helpful to have that back. And we realize the speed with which we may need to act on this, given that there's certain events coming up.
You have one additional question to throw in there, and you mentioned liability. What about liability? Do we take liability for the officers as they're hired now, for their actions? You know, if anything were to happen, there would be a city liability, and would that change if they were hired part-time? So just a question to add to the list.
Based on the fact that an officer was injured, an outside agency officer, and it's covered under our Bureau of Workers' Compensation, I would say that there is assumed liability.
That would be-
But I'd like to
I would assume so,
clarify and
too.
get back with you.
Sorry. I
No,
didn't
that's
interject
okay.
with that
No,
last
good to
one.
get the question in now, so we can answer all of them for us. The last personnel item has to do with the police contract. And council members were provided the full text of the agreement reached between the city and the Fraternal Order of Police, and that was provided to you all last week. And I'd like to, on behalf of council, once again extend our thanks to Law Director Lang and Service Safety Director Paula Mosley and the Human Resource Director Claudia Reagan for their efforts in moving towards this. This is a 3-year contract, and it would be retroactive to December 1, 2011. And it has been, at this point, voted on by the Fraternal Order of Police. And it calls for pay increases, which Law Director Lang summarized for us last year, 3% in year 1, 2.5% in year 2, 2% in year 3, and that would be for a total of 7.5%. There would be a sick leave payout, which was one of every 4 and changed from an upper limit of 30 days to 45 days. The uniform allowance has also been increased by 100. The allowance for protective vests have been increased from $475 to $650. And likewise, on the other hand, too, the insurance prescription co-pays have been increased, both for the retail and the mail-in. And the premium responsibility on the part of the police, which was set at 13%, will now be set at 25%. So that's some of the highlights that I thought I would just briefly note. And then ask council members if they have any questions about the contract. Any concerns? And if not, Councilmember Gosnell.
One of the items that was on the table at one point was longevity. That's not been touched, I believe, in the
Correct.
contract.
That has been removed. It's no longer in the FOP contract, so it will eventually
Eventually, it will be gone.
sunset.
Yeah.
Correct.
That was the only, well, I guess another comment. So the pay raises average 2.5% a year over the 3-year contract. Not sure if we could have gotten it any lower. I do worry about our ability to continue to pay our current staffing over the next 3 years, and we'll just have to see when we run out of money.
Essentially, the 2.5 per year is what was redistributed in this manner.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful too. I know that it's very tight and looks to be tight next year also.
That increase cost the city about $65,000 a year.
If no further questions, then what we'll be moving forward with next week is an ordinance to approve the contract. And are there any miscellaneous items for finance and personnel?
I would just like to state again that I would request that that again be suspended with the emergency clause since it's retroactive to December, and have that in place.
Okay.
It's up for second reading.
Oh, it is second.
It is, yeah.
Oh,
On Monday.
And the other one I had was the Safe Routes to School amendment. Debbie says she's got that, okay.
Okay. No other items for finance and personnel, then we're finished with that committee.
And so we'll move on to City and Safety Services Committee. Chair Kent Butler.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you recall, last week in regular session, we passed an ordinance, which is project number 264, which was authorizing design engineering of the water project, water line project, which we've been discussing at length. Here's some more details regarding that project. We're looking at replacing, again, 1950s era cast iron water lines within 3 areas of the city, which is consisting of 8 residential streets and 1 major arterial street, which also includes businesses. The Ransom McGuffey Harris area 1 will consist of replacing 1,920 feet of water line and include 4 new hydrants. The second area, which was Joneswood Terrace and Riverview, will be replacing over 3,000 feet of pipe and the inclusion of 7 new fire hydrants. Then Area 3, which is the West Union Street section of Schaefer to Depot, will replace over 1,500 feet of line and the inclusion of 4 new hydrants. And then Area 3, which is an alternate area, West Union Street, Depot to High, would be 2 new hydrants and a little over 700 feet of pipe. So a total of 8,126 feet of pipe. And for many people who have lived in the community longer than myself, for sure, are aware of the challenges and difficulties we've had with this aging infrastructure and water line breaks, and then the need as a boil odor, which is a safety issue for sure. So this will help alleviate, this project will help alleviate that. After a meeting last week with engineer Jessica Edine from the Public Works Office, and along with the Director of Public Works, Andy Stone, this project is estimated at over $1,138,000. So it's a large project which will be extensive and beneficial to the city. History of the project, just a little bit of information from the engineer's office. The city was nominated the water line replacement project to be funded by the Ohio EPA's Water Supply Revolving Loan Fund in March 2011. This project was placed on the Ohio EPA's intended project list and is moving through the Ohio EPA's process to obtain funding. Obviously, completing the project would address public health concerns and a very old distribution system. Construction funding, again, this is from the Office of the Engineers Department there, that construction of this funding comes in the form of a 20-year low-interest loan. There's discussion from the Public Works Office. They've met with the Auditor's Office, correct? And they will continue to have discussion with the Auditor and Council as they progress. Any questions or comments from City Service Safety Director or Auditor or Council members?
I think Jessica did give you some, the needs for the appropriation authorization. So we can start the readings up for advertising for bids, sign the contracts, authorization appropriation for construction and construction engineering. She, I think, presented you a timetable as well to get that rolling.
And I can present that to the clerk if necessary, if she didn't get a copy of that. Okay.
Okay, yeah. That's all, to start with, unless there's something, the finances have already kind of been looked at.
Right, I don't think so. The water fund does not have a lot of outstanding loan obligation, and so it's an EPO loan, isn't it? 20 year.
20 years, yeah, so we can pay it off.
You should be able to meet that obligation.
Thank you. Comments? Patterson?
I just want to kind of reiterate how important this is in terms of new hydrants alone. I mean, this is 17 new hydrants, bringing the grand total up to 29 hydrants across, or in line with these particular water lines. And I was sitting there kind of crunching the numbers, and we're talking about under the existing system, it's one for every 700 linear feet. Now we're down to one in just over 300 linear feet. So that's a huge improvement in terms of fire safety for these existing water lines.
Yeah, in all cases, we're widening the line too, from 10 to 12, from 8 to 6, 6 to 8, I mean. So we're getting better water capacity and flow capacity in each. So, it's required infrastructure, things have to be maintained. And I think it's a good, diverse project. It'll cover some of the areas that we've tracked in the past as having water line breaks. There are many more too, but we'll be working on those as time goes on.
Yeah. Member Patterson again?
Yeah, I just, along those same lines, with the larger pipes, and this is something that's not come up before, and I was curious about it when we were first discussing this, and that's basically, are the pumping stations now going to be able to handle the larger pipes? We're talking about a larger load running through them. I know it's static unless they're being used, but are the pumping stations going to be adequate?
Yeah, again, most of these get pumped up to, how the system works, of course, it pumps up to the standpipe reservoirs, and therefore the gravity does most of the pushing. I mean, it's not like it comes in and, because of wider pipe, it can't push it through enough. We have adequate pumping capacity.
Orgazi?
And I've said this before, but I think last time we discussed this. These are areas of the city that have the most number of water breaks, or at least some of the highest. And so this is really more than just routine maintenance. This is really a big deal to fix these areas at pretty high cost, but I think in the long term it'll be well worth it to the city. Each time there's a break, it costs the city several $1,000s, several thousand up to $10,000 per break. And so by dealing with this now, I think all at once, these major problem areas will end up saving the city quite a bit in the long run, freeing up man hours and our other resources in the future.
People hours.
People hours.
Well, that gets expensive.
People hours, of
Right,
course.
it does, no. Member Pappy, did you have a comment? Or?
I did not.
Okay. I saw you look.
I'm happy.
Yes. Any other thoughts, comments? Moving on to the next item. This is regarding the DARE program, which I mentioned briefly last week, with a request to authorize the mayor into applying an application and agreement for 2012-2013 drug use prevention program grant. This is something that we've done a number of years now, and I received some information regarding the DARE program, which is in its 24th year in Athens City School District, which is pretty impressive. Officer Rick Crossan has been in charge heralding the program for a number of years. He's in his 18th year as a DARE instructor, and he has spent 98 classroom hours teaching 205 sixth grade students the core DARE curriculum. And he's also recently spent an additional 3 hours teaching sixth grade students from the Plains Elementary core curriculum. This requires an immense amount of training, too, on his part to keep up with the information as well as attending annual trainings to allow him to do what he's doing with the DARE program. The core program is taught in the school district's sixth grade classes, and a small portion of the middle school lesson is then taught in eighth grade classes. And a preview curriculum starts off in fourth grade classes. So again, this is an extensive program that we've been supporting for a number of years, and I encourage us to continue to do so. Mayor?
I also would want to mention that I've gone to quite a few graduations at this point, that they, Officer Crossan also is out there doing outreach to businesses to actually sponsor some of the activities. And I know at the graduation you get a discount card, and you have a series of businesses that will actually give you discounts for various activities, and it's an incentive. So he's actually working not only with the students, but also with the business community on that side as well. And again, not having gone to being too old to go through a DARE program, but at the same time, listening to the curriculum that he's described, it's really emphasizes the decision-making process that's involved in making good choices and correct choices. So I find it interesting. I find it that he loves his work and he cares about the kids.
Thank you.
And this is just authorizing me to get the application going.
Right. Yes. Thank you, Mayor. Any other thoughts? President Sanders?
I just say that in previous years, I've asked for renewing the grant for the DARE officer, and I know that in other cities it may not be as popular, but with Officer Crossan and the way that the police department backs him up, and with comments from students and administrations at the school and families, that this is something that is very successful in our Athens school system. And so we really do want to maintain that.
Thank you. Yeah, I too applaud his work and hope we have the opportunity to continue to support that. Lastly is something I just received today, which is a request from our Public Works Director regarding an upgrade to the telemetry software. So after a number of, I guess a fair amount of time researching and determining which system would be best, also to make sure that it would be compatible with our improvements to the wastewater treatment plant. So that was some of the delay, is making sure that this new system would coincide with that. He is requesting $42,000 for appropriation authorization, which would also include new telemetry radios, which would allow them to work towards the 2013 FCC narrow banding requirements as well. So that's information regarding that. Questions, comments?
This is for both water and sewer. It's essentially a radio system that monitors all different wells and pumps that are in the city. The system we have is fairly old. I think I've seen it on the TV screen at the wastewater treatment plant, and it cycles fairly slowly because it has to go count all the pumps, say what are you doing, count all the reservoirs, say what are you doing, and both water wells as well as lift stations and water pumps. So we're just trying to get this so it's a little bit more efficient. So I can catch it. Actually, in theory, should catch a break at times too, but usually most people notice breaks other ways.
And
Member Pepe.
Mr. Stone sits on the wellhead protection team as well, so I think he's looking at the improvements in his infrastructure and his ability to monitor, looking at everything in the city that we have to look forward to our water quality.
Actually, it doesn't measure quality, but quantity and actions of pumps and when they're functioning or not.
And so my point to that is you need to know those things in order to monitor other things as well. You
Oh,
have to
yes,
be able to
yes.
record that accurately in order to provide that information to whomever.
Yes.
So that all fits for me in terms of our goals.
Again, it's more infrastructure, but it's a software infrastructure. You don't usually see it. It's the backroom stuff that makes the system work.
If there's no other questions or comments, I don't think I have any
I have
miscellaneous.
one question. I'm just wondering if there's an update on the Grosvenor project. I haven't heard anything out there in the public on that, and I was wondering if you might help us on that.
If I remember the bid, we've already accepted the bid.
Bids have been open, it's been awarded to Shelley and Sands, and they plan on starting in mid-April.
Second week in April, so to speak.
Okay.
Around that. And I think it came under, was it? A little bit
It
under?
did, so actually, we are looking and tasked them with adding on to go to the end of Grosvenor for some additional storm and street improvement. in that
Great.
section. So,
There's some very serious need farther on down the street.
yep.
Excellent.
And I
Too bad we
believe
couldn't do the entire street, but
part of that will include sidewalk improvements, we hope, when it gets to that point.
It indeed already does. I believe you've already, did you do it, have we started the resolution of necessity? We need to get that going.
Part of the North Court Street improvement project, we've expanded that a little bit to include sidewalks in the region. It was part of that ordinance,
issue
That's
one
it.
money.
yeah. I believe.
Again, I don't have any miscellaneous unless the city service safety director has anything else too? Or mayor? No?
No, I don't. Do you?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, and the final committee to work with us this evening is the Transportation Committee. Yolahu Ghazni, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. President. One item on the agenda tonight, and that is a list of vehicles the city has that we'd like to auction off. And I'm just going to read the VIN numbers. No, I'm not. We have
Name that vehicle.
a 96 Cavalier, 94 Camry, 88 Dodge Ram,
Wow, an 88.
87 S10, and I've got pictures if anyone needs to see that. A 2004 Nissan Frontier, and a Saab 900 SE 1997 year. These vehicles,
It's
I
a
believe,
2004 Frontier?
yeah.
I thought that was a forfeiture. I thought we were going to use that.
He must have
Okay.
changed his mind.
So this is a list from the police department.
Yes.
These were, Why does the city have a Saab? Yeah, so these were taken into possession by the city of Athens through, I believe all of them through law enforcement action
Yeah.
of some kind.
And my confusion was I thought that 2004 Frontier was going to be utilized by us rather than just, but I don't know, I'll have to check.
Looks like it's in pretty good shape, so maybe
2004, yeah.
follow up on that before
That would be a new one.
we get to that.
What is the company that makes that?
Nissan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe the mechanics determined that it was not
Good.
the roadworthy because of the...
And it's already white, so it matches with other city vehicles if we were to have a use for it. So there's not really much discussion to have on these. This comes up periodically. We generally get rid of them in a city auction, I believe, most of the time, but we may put these online.
That was the request.
Yeah,
well.
we've done sealed bids in the past, we've done auctions in the past. I think some of the buses we were talking about is actually donation to other, organizations, nonprofits.
Right.
You could choose any of the three or just put them all in the mix. I think the last time we've done abandonment of vehicles was, we had the Spectrum on there. A lot of times we don't get a lot of money back because an auction is attended by 20 people or something.
Right.
So we're having conversations how to make it easy and painless.
And I think as city council, if we can give you as many options as we can, that's probably the best way to get rid of these.
Yeah, I hope so.
Are there any questions or comments on these vehicles? All right, any miscellaneous?
There is a request again out there from the police chief for additional appropriation from his law enforcement trust fund, again, not from the general fund, towards the purchase of a vehicle in his department. I'm sorry, I don't have the exact dollar amounts in front of me. Might have been 14 to 16. Does that sound right, Oahu?
Was that for
A used...
small pickup truck?
Yeah, that's why I thought the Nissan was going to fit the bill, but it's not working, it doesn't work.
And again, it would be from their trust fund, a capital, a purchase that they can justify and utilize through that, so it wouldn't be for additional general fund monies.
And I know the Green Fleets looked at that request, and it seemed to be pretty good gas mileage.
And a little more dual purpose thing,
Yeah.
so.
But my only question on that is if another vehicle in the city would be able to serve that purpose. You know, in terms of a shared use vehicle, I don't know how often they have a need for a pickup bed, but I'm sure we can get that information from Chief Pyle.
And I don't know that, we went through the whole process of disposing of the Dare Porsche, but I don't know that we've received authorization for the purchase of the replacement vehicle. Do you recall? So
I don't think so.
That may be coming forward too by
Okay.
next Monday.
Great. That concludes the Transportation Committee.
Okay, all our committees have reported.
If I may, I'd like to make a brief announcement. Sure. I just wanted to make an announcement that tomorrow evening at the Beacon School at 6:30, the Disabilities Festival is taking place. It's well worth going down and attending. There'll be a number of booths set up down there. There'll also be the Challenge by Choice simulation items that some people might want to try. Darkened glasses, braces on your arms or legs, ride around in a wheelchair and see what that's like. Kind of walk in someone else's shoes. But I encourage everyone to come and attend.
And location again?
Beacon School
Thank you.
at 6:30 tomorrow evening.
And most of the service industries are there, that service disabilities. Disability Commission will be there. I think we're giving some awards away, I believe.
We're giving out 2.
But we're going to keep it secret to
Okay.
that,
You have to go, right?
Yeah, you have to go find out.
Okay, that's our committee meetings.